Welcome to the Health Flow Podcast. I'm your host, Jean Armand. Join me weekly as I share health information that will educate and inspire you. Please consider supporting this podcast by listening, subscribing, sharing, and rating. Once again, welcome to the Health Flow Podcast. Are you thinking about starting your own podcast? If so, Anchor is the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. Number one, Anchor is free. Anchor has all the creation tools that allow you to record your podcast and edit it right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. Anchor is everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Hello, and welcome to episode number 52 of the Health Flow Podcast. So, I didn't exactly know what I was going to talk about today. And as usual, I'm at work and the perfect topic just presented itself to me. So, a few disclaimers. I did get permission from the person that this episode is all about. I invited her, first of all. She was a patient of mine that I actually saw in clinic today. I did invite her to just speak about it since it was something she really wants to tell, but is not ready to present it. She's not ready to say it. She's actually considered writing a book about her story. So this is a female I saw today. This was our first time meeting. And once again, I got her permission to tell this story, but I will leave her identity out. Will not say her name or anything that can identify who she is. She doesn't even know my podcast. So about my podcast, I did tell her I have a podcast, didn't actually even say the name of the podcast. So I don't even feel she's even going to listen, but it's a story that has to be told. And the more I thought about it, the more this week I've been seeing a lot of patients. And let's just get into it. The topic is about HIV. And I've seen quite a few people in clinic this week with HIV and just with some devastating things that they're facing along with HIV. So here's this young lady's story. So back in, I'm trying not to reveal her age at all. So and I'm referring to my notes actually, so I have to refer to the notes. So she was married in 2001, her first marriage in 2001. She had been with this gentleman, high school sweethearts. So she said since age 15, she met this man and they were together for years. So from 15 to 21, they were together. And then life was going on. She had 2 children, 2 boys with this person. And then in 2005, what happened is that he he got sick, and once he got sick, went to the hospital or wherever he went, he was diagnosed with HIV. Now, for her, she believes, she tells a story that, she was having babies during that time. So her physician was testing her, like her OBGYN, that's standard. And she said just this one particular time, each year she had been negative. So she said she was probably misdiagnosed at that time because when they looked back, not misdiagnosed, but she says her doctor explained to her that, she didn't pay close attention. And when she was positive, she did not let her know. But so her husband, because they eventually married, was diagnosed with HIV in about 2001. That's when he got his diagnosis. He told her, she said they both cried. They were upset. But she knew he was her only sexual partner. She was with him since the age of 15. She'd had two children, two boys with him. Neither one of them had HIV. So then she went and got tested and was positive. And when they looked back like a few months prior, she was already positive. So I asked her, how could she be sure that it wasn't, she who contracted HIV first? She said she was sure because she had never been with any other man sexually, and he was her only sexual partner since age 15. So, they decided, she said it was rough, but they decided they were going to stay together. They eventually got married, and he passed away 4 years later. She said it was very rough for her. He lost a lot of weight. He was ill. One of the problem is he was not compliant with taking his HIV medicines like she was. So, she just never, she has remained healthy all these years because she's taking the HIV medicine. Now, we know we don't have a cure yet for HIV, but listen to the story. Take the HIV medicine. If you're compliant, meaning taking it as prescribed regularly, you could actually live with HIV and not transmit it to anyone. Because once your numbers get so low, your viral numbers are low, you don't necessarily have to be in a place where you're able even to transmit it, meaning giving it to someone else. So her life goes on. Um, he dies in 2005. She did find out. So I said, "Did you guys ever find out how he got the HIV?" She said, "Yes." During that time before he passed away, they early on into his diagnosis in 2001, they found out that he had cheated on her with a neighbor who was also a prostitute. So she was a prostitute, and she had ended up also getting sick and dying of HIV, well, which progressed to AIDS. So that's how that happened. So she then goes on and she meets, so the first guy dies in 2005. She meets another gentleman in 2006. She said they were attracted to each other. Initially, she always used condoms, but she never told him. She did not tell him. They used condoms, and then one day the condom broke, and just one thing led to another. She continued um, to have sex with him without protection. She said she was scared. Um, she was nervous. She was scared. She was afraid to lose him. She didn't know what, he was going to think of her. Then people in her family, she said, were trying to convince her that yes, she should. Eventually, she got pregnant with a child by this man. And then when she delivered the baby at the hospital, because yes, it is illegal for you to knowingly have HIV and not tell someone and have unprotected sex with them. That is illegal. So before the hospital would let her go home, they told her that she had to let the father of the child know that she was HIV positive, or they were going to report her to the police. Now, these are her words. I have no facts. I'm only telling the story the way she told it to me. She said that the hospital said she had to tell him, and they called him to the facility, and she was threatened. She was threatened to be reported to the police and possibly lose her child, the third one, and his child. So they brought him to the hospital, and she said, surrounded with social services and him. They told him he was very upset, was angry, threw things in the room. But let's just back up. Another part of the story, she said that she used to, every time she got her status, she would bring it home and leave it on the pillow, leave it on the desk, leave it in the open, because she wanted him to know, but she just didn't know how to talk to him and tell him what it was. She was afraid. She was just, no judgment here. I don't know what she was thinking. I do know that it was wrong, but she said she just couldn't bring herself, and she thought by leaving things out, he would see it, he would read it, and then ask her a question. So that's how she was hoping it would happen. So it never happened. She said he just ignored it. She believed that he knew. That she was, and just himself didn't want to face it. So, but once she had a baby and there were medical people involved, they, just having a sip of water, they forced her to tell him. So he was upset, but he never left. He got tested. He was negative. He's still negative today. They've moved on with their lives. They are married. She is compliant and with her medication regimen. She's always taking her medicine. Her numbers are, you know, are not there, are low, she says. And I didn't really check to see where her numbers were today, but um, she doesn't, she hasn't transmitted it to him. They are married, and that's what they decided to do. So there's so many things with that. I mean, yes, it was definitely wrong for her to knowingly have HIV and have unprotected sex and not tell the person. And now I've seen a lot of people, a lot. I've talked to a lot of young men, women who have HIV, and um, no one told them. and didn't give them the choice to make a decision as to whether they were going to have unprotected sex or not and possibly get HIV. So I thought this was interesting enough. I mean, it baffled me. You have HIV, you are, yes, it wasn't her fault that she got it. Supposedly, she got it from her first husband who had cheated on her with a prostitute. He passed away because he was non-compliant with taking the medicine. You have a chance, I guess, and then you kind of like just, I don't know what y'all think. I want someone to talk back to me. Send me some questions to my email. Make some comments. Let's, what do you think? None of her children have it, so that's a blessing. We've definitely come a long way. Now, I don't know if I've ever said this, but years ago, many years ago, because I've been in medicine many years, 30 plus years, I when I was in training and just working, I don't know, maybe in college. I think it was in college. I was working at a hospital, and it was when HIV first came out. And I was a student then, and a nursing student to be exact. And I worked at a hospital in New Jersey, St. Michael's Hospital, I believe it was. They had an infectious disease floor. So that's where they would send all of their HIV positive patients. And literally no one wanted to work there and work on the floor. Or I shouldn't say that. The people who were willing to work stayed. And then outside there was just a few people who would do it. And then I remember we would take care of these patients. As a student and a young person, it was a little terrifying for me because these patients were usually very thin, emaciated. Um, they were going to die. And that's where I just remembered that when I did take care of them, I tried my best just to treat them kindly. They weren't always very kind because when people are going through health issues or just stressors in general, they can be very mean and rude to the caretakers around them. So I've been on the side of that. So there are some people who are just, um, nice and just that's their personality. But there are others that are angry and just, they take it out on the people that are there to care for them. So long story short is that didn't mind if I got floated to that unit. I worked, and just took care of them just like anyone else. We used universal precautions then, unless they had some type of respiratory problems, pneumonia, that or even TB, because they could get just some common illnesses. We just wore gown, gloves, and mask just when necessary. Mask only when they had respiratory issues. So, I mean, to me, it was just final because they always died. It was every single one of them. It was just a matter of time. You would just wait to hear what the report was. We were in the early stages of that, just collecting different information, different medications were new. Like just, I remember just having AZT. Then it was like so many children being born with it to where we are now. Now, if you take your medicines, your numbers can be undetectable. The viral numbers is undetectable, and you don't even have to transmit it. Now, they're having, if you say come in contact with someone who possibly could have HIV, or if you're raped, you could actually take medications to prevent. If you go seek medical attention um, soon enough, you can take medications that will actually prevent you from getting the HIV. Their children don't. Mothers could be, HIV positive, but children do not necessarily. It doesn't have to be transmitted anymore to children. That's been a long time that they've been successful to that. It just saddens me because at times, because I think sometimes we forget, or like I see so many young people um, in their 20s, especially homosexual males in their 20s, early 20s, HIV positive. I've been in a room with a patient and his father. He was in his early 20s. And when I asked him all about his medical problems, his dad was there with him for that visit. He said he denied it. And then when I walked out of the room, his father, I walked out of the room, ended my visit. The patient came out, the room with me and just said, can you show me where the bathroom was? I show him where the bathroom is. And he says, I really just want to come out and tell you I'm HIV positive, but my dad doesn't know. I mean, he was in early 20s. It's just so much to consider. It's just so much going on. One of the saddest stories I heard um, just last week was a gentleman, I don't remember how old he was, maybe in his 30s. And his life story was that when he was maybe, I don't know, middle school. His mom was an alcoholic, he said, and abused him. He was placed in a foster home. One day he goes to visit, like on a weekend, he goes to visit his mom. Mom boyfriend rapes him, ends up giving him HIV. And this man in his 30s now have HIV. And just the turmoil that this man has been through, the self hate, the self destructive behaviors, and then all the struggle with health issues. It's a lot. Um, One of the things that I think this podcast does for me is that, we think I'm always grateful and thankful that I'm healthy and strong in my right mind, and my family members, my children are healthy and strong. I'm happy for that. And I'm blessed that I was chosen to do what I do. And it's definitely my passion. And I like doing what I'm doing. But sometimes every single day, the day in and the day out of all the stories, it can weigh on you. And I know that it's nothing compared to what these people are going through, but sometimes it does take a toll on you to just hear day in and day out all these tragic stories. So I just wanted to come on to say, please, HIV has not gone away. It's out there. I mean, a friend of someone that I knew um, passed away. Well, I knew not personally, um, but knew him from the hair salon. He passed away this week from complications of HIV. One, you don't have to get HIV because you can use protection. That's one. Condoms all the time, every time, period. Two, take the treatment. If you're diagnosed with it, you can still live pretty healthy life. You know, it's people who are HIV positive, and then, HIV positive, and then you're having all these other STDs. So you're not taking the precaution that you're supposed to. This is everyone, all of us. Let's just be responsible. Don't forget, it's, in the midst of COVID and everything else, HIV is still there and real, and it's not going away, and we have not found a cure. And just live responsible. Condoms all the time, every time. If you do have it, seek medical attention. And hey, it's illegal to have um, sex with someone else knowing that you are HIV positive and not let them know and give them the choice if they want to do it. So that's just what I wanted to just drop in to tell you this real story, and just to remind us to um, condoms all the time, every time. And I did an episode, one of my older episodes on STDs. Let's see, I don't even know which one it was, but just scroll through and review all of those things on all those different sexually transmitted diseases. It was actually episode number 14. Take a listen again. I did that back in October, sexually transmitted diseases, and I had more details then, I believe, on HIV. So remember, condoms all the time, every time. HIV is still there. In the midst of COVID-19, we're still dealing and battling with HIV. All right, send your questions in if you have any to the Health Flow Podcast at gmail.com. Comment and like this podcast. Thank you, and stay healthy and well. Thank you for listening to the Health Flow Podcast. Your support is much appreciated. It is my goal to share health information that you find helpful. Email topics of interest to thehealthflow@gmail.com. Follow me on Instagram at thehealthflow, also on Facebook at The Health Flow. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and share. Until next time, keep your health flowing.